Hello, I'm Victoria Williams from mymusictheory.com and you're watching a video about scales for Grade 5 Music Theory candidates taking the ABRSM syllabus. This is a quick overview of what you need to do and how you can do it. If you're looking for something which is a bit more detailed, then you can hop on over to my website, mymusictheory.com, where you'll find complete lessons and exercises and also PDFs that you can download, which will help you in your exam. You'll also find a reference section where I have a complete list of all the scales if you need to check anything. Okay, so if you're ready, let's get started. There are four basic kinds of scale that you need to know for the Grade 5 exam. They are major scales, minor harmonic scales, minor melodic scales and chromatic scales. Chromatic scales are a little bit different, so I'll talk about them later in the video. We'll begin with the major and minor scales. The most important thing to realise about scales is that basically they're just a pattern of tones and semitones, which is repeated over and over again with each octave you add into the scale. The second important point to remember is that in major and minor scales you can only use each of the 7 different letter names A to G once per octave. Here's the scale of C major. It's the scale you get if you play from C to C on the piano using only the white notes. You can work out the pattern of semitones and tones by looking at the keys on the piano keyboard. The distance from C to D is a tone because it's 2 keys higher on the keyboard. D to E is also a tone. E to F is a semitone because it's just 1 note higher on the keyboard. The entire pattern for major scales is this: tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. It's a good idea to learn this pattern TTS, TTTS, but even if you can't remember it, don't worry, as you can always sketch out a piano keyboard on paper and work it out from scratch. Now, to make any other major scale, use the same pattern of tones and semitones and make sure that you use each letter name A to G only once per octave. For example, here's D major, an easy scale. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Let's try a difficult scale. How about F sharp major? F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp. Notice that we had to use E sharp instead of F natural, even though it's the same piano key. This is because you can only use each letter name once, and we've already used F sharp as the first note of the scale. To make a descending scale, you'll just need to reverse the pattern, or start at the end and write it backwards. In a major scale, if you need to add a key signature, the sharps or flats in the key signature are the same as those you wrote in the scale. In D major, we used F sharp and C sharp, so you need the key signature with 2 sharps. If you're not sure how to write key signatures properly, take a look at my video on key signatures in 10 minutes. The link is in the description. Now, let's figure out minor scales. Minor scales come in 2 flavours, harmonic and melodic, and you need to know both types for the ABRSM Grade 5 exam. Let's start with A minor, the simplest minor scale. Like C major, the scale of A minor is based on the white notes of the piano starting and ending on A. If you play from A up to the next A, you're actually playing the scale of A natural minor. But this scale isn't on the syllabus for the ABRSM theory exams. To make the harmonic minor, you need to count up to the 7th note of the scale and then raise it by 1 semitone without changing the letter name of the note. In this case, we raise G up to G sharp So the scale of A minor harmonic is A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A. As before, you can use the pattern formed from the A minor harmonic minor scale, which is easy to remember, in order to work out any other harmonic scale at all. The pattern of tones and semitones is tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, 3 semitones, semitone. Let's use the same pattern to find the notes for the scale of G sharp harmonic minor. G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F double sharp, G sharp. This time we had to use a double sharp, F double sharp, instead of the note G natural, because we can't use the letter name G twice in the same octave. As with major scales, to write the descending scale, just start at the end and write it backwards. Next up, melodic minor scales. Go back to the basic A natural minor scale again, using the white notes. This time you need to raise both the 6th and 7th degrees of the scale, each by 1 semitone, again without changing the letter name of the note. This gives us A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. The pattern of tones and semitones is T, S, T, 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 S. See if you can work out the scale of C sharp melodic minor. Here are the notes: C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp. We used B sharp instead of C natural because C sharp is already used in the scale, so we can't use the letter C again. Melodic minor scales are unusual because the notes are different on the way down. But in fact, the notes on the way down are the same as the natural minor scale, or, in other words, without raising the 6th and 7th degrees of the scale. So check the patterns of tones and semitones for the descending A natural minor scale: A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. The pattern is T, T, S, T, T, S, T. Then use it as a template for the scale you need. Let's say G minor melodic. If you need to add a key signature to a minor scale of any type, it will be the same sharps and flats as the major scale made by the 3rd note in the ascending scale. In other words, in A minor, the key signature is the same as in C major, which happens to be no flats or sharps. Here's a harder one. What's the key signature for the scale of F sharp minor? It's the same as that for A major, 3 sharps. A minor and C major are said to be relative keys, and so are F sharp minor and A major for this reason. Put the key signature in the same way it looks for the relative major scale. Then add an accidental on the 6th or 7th degrees of the scale as necessary. Here's the scale of G melodic minor ascending with a key signature. The key signature is the same as for B flat major, 2 flats, B flat and E flat, and includes the notes E natural and F sharp, so you need to write those in as accidentals. In a descending melodic minor scale, you won't need to add any accidentals at all, because neither the 6th or 7th degrees of the natural minor scale were changed. Here's G melodic minor descending with a key signature. Finally, let's take a look at chromatic scales. This is the chromatic scale starting on C. One octave of a chromatic scale has 13 notes in total, and each is a semitone apart. You need to use up each and every note until you arrive at the same letter you started at. There are two important points to remember. Firstly, you must start and end on the exact same note, spelled the same way. So if your scale starts on C sharp, for example, it must also end on C sharp and not on D flat, even though they're the same note on the piano. Secondly, pay careful attention to the accidentals you use. You'll need to use some letter names twice. Don't forget that if you add an accidental to one note, the accidental will also apply to the next note of the same pitch. Here, for example, you have the start of a chromatic scale starting on A flat. The next note is A natural, so make sure you include the natural symbol to the left of the second A. Also, make sure you don't use the same letter name 3 times. The ABRSM will deduct a point if you do that. Here, there are 3 notes using the letter A flat, A natural, A sharp. You can correct this by using enharmonic equivalence, which means writing the same note spelled a different way. A flat, A, B flat is okay. Change the A sharp to B flat, for example. By the way, if you're asked to find a section of a chromatic scale within a piece of music, the first thing to do is scan it quickly, looking for places where the music moves by step and accidentals have been used. It's impossible to write more than 2 notes of a chromatic scale without using accidentals somewhere. So checking for accidentals is a good, quick way of narrowing down the possibilities. And that's all for scales. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, and don't forget to subscribe to the My Music Theory channel on YouTube. Thanks for watching.